Samsung Galaxy A05 here is the clear definition of entry-level device. So this phone here is actually going for less than $100, specifically 82 to about $95. And I'll actually leave affiliate links down in the description if you're interested in getting something like this. Let's start off with the design. So still on the design, this is actually a full-on plastic phone, by the way, and as we all know, plastic is more durable than glass, so you should be less concerned when it comes to drops or falls, especially falls. So this means we have more drop protection on the Samsung Galaxy A05. I actually went with the light green color here. I mean, it looks very cool in my opinion. But we also have the white option there that I think you guys should check out if you plan on getting one of these. The black is just dull and it doesn't really do it for me personally. But the green is a very cool option in my opinion. So this is actually a 6.7-inch phone. This is in no way a very small phone. It's very tall, and here's a side-by-side comparison with my Samsung Galaxy S22. So as you can see, it dwarfs the S22, and this is no way a 100 phone, by the way. I actually have to use both hands when using this phone, unlike my S22, and this is just something I wanted you guys to know. So moving over the screen on the Samsung Galaxy A05 here, we actually have a 720p LCD display here, and when we turn on the screen, we actually greeted with this U-notch and thick bezels, especially the chin. So yes, this might not be screaming the largest or the craziest numbers on the phone, but you should know this is an entry-level phone. This is not a budget phone. This is an entry-level phone, less than $100, and these are some of the things you should be expecting from a phone at this price point. So for a phone of this size, you might actually think it's a very heavy device, but no, it's not. It's actually very light, and it comes in at 195 grams, which is 1 gram heavier than my iPhone 11, which is actually made up of more expensive and more heavier things like glass and aluminum. One thing that actually contributes to the weight on the Samsung Galaxy A05 is actually the battery. So the battery on the Samsung Galaxy A05 is actually a 5000 milliamp hour battery. So this should actually give you a fair idea about the battery life. Battery life on this phone here is solid 10 out of 10, and it should be expected. One of the strongholds on these budget or entry level phones is actually their battery size and their battery life. They actually have a less powerful chip or a less power hungry chip, and this actually gives them that advantage when it comes to battery life. So now let's talk about what we get around the mobile phone. So when you go to the bottom of the Samsung Galaxy A05, we actually have our aux port, our microphone. So the Galaxy A05 actually comes with dual microphones, a primary microphone and a secondary microphone. We get our Type C port, and yes, this phone here actually comes with a mono speaker, so only one speaker on this phone, and it's not that bad. I mean, it's okay for its price. So one thing I really like about this phone is actually the design. So the Samsung Galaxy A05 is a very plain, simple, and a very well put together phone in my opinion. The design is nothing too scary or pulverizing. It's very simple and very plain. But there's one slight issue with the design on the Samsung Galaxy A05. So with the back panel, it's actually a glossy panel, and as a result, it actually picks up a lot of grease or fingerprint smudges and things like that. But since it's also glossy, sometimes you don't really see it, especially when the light bounces off it. And but sometimes too, you see the grease and those fingerprints. Enough of what's on the outside of the Samsung Galaxy A05. Let's talk about what's on the inside of this phone right here. So let's start off with the CPU. So with the CPU, we actually have the MediaTek Helio G85 chipset here. It's actually a 12 nanometer chipset, which was actually released in 2020. And the goal here is that this chipset is actually less power hungry. Yes, it might not be efficient, but it's less power hungry, and this also contributes to the battery life on this phone. Because it's less power hungry, it actually draws less power from the battery, and this directly translates to a better battery life. But there's one ache I have here. So this chipset here can actually support a 1080p display on the Samsung Galaxy A05, but Samsung decided to give us a 720p display. And I almost forgot, the display is actually 60 Hz, and that's all. You don't get 90 Hz on this phone. All we get is 60 Hz. So when it comes to your average performance, like scrolling, browsing, moving through images, and doing your average stuff, this phone flies through them with no issues or no hiccups. But when it comes to gaming and things like that, you should know what you are getting at this price point. You should be expecting games to be played on the lowest settings, and when you try to push it to a very higher setting, you then begin to experience some stutters and breaks and drops in your frames and FPS and stuff like that. So when it comes to performance on the side of gaming, this is not the phone you should go for. But then, because it's a 6.7-inch display, gaming and consuming media on this phone here looks very, very cool. Not looks per se, but we have more real estate to work with. And I sometimes enjoy gaming on the Samsung Galaxy A05 as compared to my S22, just because I have a larger screen on the A05 as compared to the smaller screen on my S22. And sometimes it really gets to me. I have more real estate, I see more, I can do more. And that's a plus for the Samsung Galaxy A05 with its 6.7-inch display. So moving on to software, the Samsung Galaxy A05 actually came with Android 13. Yes, and currently I have Android 14 with One UI 6.1 on it. We are supposed to get Android 15 on this phone as well. And I just wanted to let you guys know that. So we actually have one major OS update down the line to get on the Samsung Galaxy A05. So when it comes to software experience, we actually are not getting the full package here, by the way. So we lose out on things like the screen recorder app, we lose out on Dex, we lose out on link to Windows, we lose out on the interpreter app, and these little things. And just wanted to let you guys know, we also have a few Bluetooth on this phone here, like Netflix and the rest, stuff like that. And forget about AI, by the way. I just wanted to let you know. So now let's move on to the cameras. But before we talk about the hardware of the cameras, let's talk about the software, the camera app on this phone right here. So when you open the camera app, it actually takes about a second to open. It doesn't have the fastest load time. You can see it's quite slow coming from my S22. I know they are not in the same price range, but opening the camera app takes about a second or two. Also, when taking a picture, just know that this phone doesn't have the fastest capture time. It's slightly slow when taking pictures, in the sense that when taking a picture, after you've taken your first picture, the second capture does not register immediately. It takes time, or it doesn't register at all, and you have to give it about a few seconds before you click again to take another picture. So if you want the fastest capture time on this phone here, just know you are not getting that. After you click one, you have to wait about a second before you click again. Multiple clicks will not be registered on this phone. So it's quite slow when it comes to taking multiple shots at a go. So now let's talk about the hardware of the cameras on the Samsung Galaxy A05. So with the main camera here, we actually have a 50 megapixel shooter here for the main camera. And on the back, we also have a 2 megapixel depth sensor here as well. And on the front, we actually have our 8 megapixel selfie camera. So on the cameras, let's start off with video. I mean, I shoot videos, so I like to start with videos before we get to pictures. So both the main 50 megapixel sensor and the 8 megapixel front facing camera actually shoot at 1080p at 30 frames per second. That's the maximum they can go. Here are a few shots I took with the 50 megapixel main camera when it comes to video. So with video, HDR is actually non-existent on this phone. You might see the HDR symbol there, but the CPU isn't able to keep up with the live processing and things like that. So HDR is very, very poor on this phone. And come on, it's a very cheap phone, so you should expect that. But when it comes to video, it's okay, it's usable, especially when you use a tripod. So this camera here doesn't have optical image stabilization or electronic image stabilization. So all these fancy words mean is that you should get a tripod when shooting a video on this phone, because it cannot stabilize its own image by itself. Okay, so enough of video, let's talk about the images or the image quality from the Samsung Galaxy A05. So yes, it might have a 50 megapixel main shooter here, but factors like sensor size and things like that play a role when it comes to image processing. And at this price point, your expectations should be low as well. Nevertheless, images from the Samsung Galaxy A05 are very good and very, very okay for this price point. They do not have the sharpest images. Images tend to be on the softer side of things, and all you have to do to get good quality images is just shoot during broad daylight or in a well-lit environment. Don't shoot at night, because your image quality is just going to fall apart. And trust me, I've tried it. Images from the Samsung Galaxy A05 sometimes come with this sort of warmth tint, as I saw on the Redmi 13C. I don't know why Samsung also has this profile here, but I've seen that on the Redmi 13C, and we also have that on the Samsung Galaxy A05. So with image quality and video quality, shoot in a well-lit environment, and especially with video, use a tripod or get yourself a gimbal, because you don't get stabilization on this phone. Anyway, let me chip this in. I really like the camera module or the camera bump on the Samsung Galaxy A05. I mean, just two camera bumps. the main shooter and the depth sensor, and that's it. It's very, very simple and very, very clean. Most manufacturers at this price point usually give their camera bumps an aggressive look. I don't know why they do that. They just put multiple camera modules there just to make you think their phone gives you more camera capabilities, but some of them don't even work and some are just there for aesthetic purposes only and they play no functional role. But the Samsung Galaxy A05 gives us a very clean, very, very clean camera bump, and there is no wobble on the Samsung Galaxy A05 when you put it on your desk. No wobble at all. It's just flat and I just like it. And as I said earlier, it looks very similar to my iPhone 11 with the camera bump and the flashlight as well. Okay, let's talk about extras. So my favorite part in every video I shoot, extras. So with extras, we actually have 25 watts maximum of charging on the Samsung Galaxy A05 here, and I really like it. It's cool, but we don't get the charger in the box. Just wanted to let you guys know that. Also, my model here is actually the 4 gigs RAM paired with 64 gigs of storage. We also have the 128 gigs of storage there. And by the way, this phone supports dual SIM plus a memory card. Okay, you can be using 2 SIMs and a memory card as well. And you can simply just get the 64 gigs and double your storage with an SD card slot, and you're just good to go. That's very cool to have on this phone. So let's talk about the conclusion. So I think the biggest question to be answered in this video here is, who is this phone meant for? And I think this is a very simple question if you ask me. So this phone here has a very huge advantage when it comes to battery life, and battery life is very, very important to almost everybody who uses a smartphone. So who am I going to recommend this phone for? And I'm going to recommend the Samsung Galaxy A05 for people who are extremely old, people in the old category. You know, grandma doesn't really mind an AMOLED screen over an LCD screen. Grandma doesn't mind a 120 Hz screen. All she wants is a phone that just works, a phone she can use to make phone calls and just scroll and occasionally go to social media to check up a few updates. So firstly, I'm going to recommend this phone for the elderly people or people of old age, and also I'm going to recommend this phone for people who are extremely young. Yes, it's a 6.7-inch screen, which is a very large screen by the way, and I recommend it for the younger audience, people especially below the ages of 14 downwards. This phone is good for you. It has an exceptional battery life, a large screen, and you know, kids usually enjoy devices with larger screens and it works well for them. So I would also recommend it for people the younger age as well. This phone here has a full day battery life, and this is my thoughts when it comes to recommending it for a particular group of people. But at the same time, this price point might seem to be very low or very cheap, but other manufacturers actually put up a fight at this price point. I actually reviewed the Redmi 13C very long time ago, but it also has some pretty amazing features as well, and it's actually going head to head with the Samsung Galaxy A05 at that price point. So this is my review and these are my thoughts on the Samsung Galaxy A05. As I said earlier, I have affiliate links down in the description. If you want to get hands on this phone here, check out the link in my description. So this is my review and I'll see you guys in another video.